Hello, I'm Tiffany of Stitchin' Addiction, and I'm excited to share the next video in my Becoming Jo March project. I started this project in 2020 when I decided to make 7 historical outfits based on descriptions of Jo's clothing in Little Women. Today, we will be discussing chapters 35 and 36 of Little Women. If you've been following along, I hope you've read these chapters in preparation, as there will be spoilers in this video. Another little visit to the seashore would suit Beth better, and as Grandma could not be prevailed upon to leave the babies, Jo took Beth down to the quiet place where she could live much in the open air and let the fresh sea breezes blow a little color into her pale cheeks. It was not a fashionable place, but even among the pleasant people there, the girls made few friends, preferring to live for one another. Beth was too shy to enjoy society, and Jo too wrapped up in her to care for anyone else. So they were all in all to each other, and came and went, quite unconscious of the interest they excited in those about them, who watched with sympathetic eyes the strong sister and the feeble one, always together. These chapters are part of the second book of Little Women, which was commonly called Good Wives when the work was published as 2 volumes. This second volume details each sister's journey into adulthood. Meg as she becomes a wife and mother, Jo as she makes her own way in the world, and Amy as she travels and pursues her art. However, in all of this, Beth is still at home and still much the same girlish character that we loved in the first part of Little Women, caring, thoughtful, and shy. Her health has been impaired ever since she had scarlet fever, so she lives at home with Marmee and Father, helping her parents, Hannah and Meg, as she is able. In chapter 36, when Jo comes home from New York, she was struck with the change in Beth. Her sister's face was no paler and but little thinner than in the autumn, yet there was a strange, transparent look about it, as if the mortal was being slowly refined away, and the immortal shining through the frail flesh with an indescribably pathetic beauty. This realization spurs Jo to use her hard-earned money to take Beth to a beachside resort in hopes that the fresh sea breezes and cooler temperatures will aid her health. The chapter on their trip inspired me to investigate what Jo and Beth would have worn while at the seaside. Spending time at the oceanfront was a common activity in the summertime when Victorians wanted to escape the oppressive heat of inland cities. Additionally, it was also a cure frequently recommended for the sick and invalid. As we have discussed in previous videos, Victorian women had a dress for every activity. Visiting a beach resort was no exception. As Punch observed in July of 1850, there are fashions for the seaside in just the same way as there are fashions for the opera, or for a wedding, or for a morning concert, or for an evening party. These fashions are so broadly marked that they would produce the greatest consternation if worn anywhere else but at the seaside. Seaside fashion fell into 2 major categories: lightweight summer dresses and bathing suits for actually taking a dip in the water. Given each sister's character, I think it is safe to assume that Beth would be the one wearing the dress and Jo the one wearing the bathing suit. The dresses worn at the seaside were made of semi-sheer fabrics, usually what we would call a cotton lawn or cotton voile now, to allow the wearer to remain as cool as possible. Additionally, while the dress often had long sleeves, these sleeves and part of the bodice were unlined, creating less layers on the upper part of the body. These summer sheer dresses were usually delicate feminine confections made in floral prints of light pastel colors and replete with ruffles and other such details. Alternatives featured dresses made in nautically inspired colors such as blue or red stripes. These dresses could be one piece or a separate bodice and skirt. Underneath these summer dresses, the Victorian woman would have still worn her chemise and drawers, a corset, crinoline, and petticoats. Beth doesn't have many colors mentioned in regards to her wardrobe, so I chose a pastel plaid of blues and pinks for her sheer summer dress. The fabric was a cotton lawn and of a similar weight to what would have been used in the Victorian era for their summer dresses. After reviewing many extant and fashion plate examples, I decided to add ruffles on the bodice and skirt with a large bow in the back of her dress. Beth is a delicate and gentle character and still portrayed as very young and innocent, so I felt that her dresses would retain some girlish elements. I chose to make the dress fairly loose with full bishop sleeves and a bodice gathered instead of darted to fit the waistline. A parasol and a lightweight shawl completed Beth's ensemble. For Jo, I created a bathing suit. I discussed Victorian sporting fashion in a previous video, and this bathing suit is yet another example of sporting fashion worn by women of the time. While sea bathing was gaining popularity in the early 19th century, bathing costumes had not yet caught up. During the Regency era and well into the Victorian era, women simply wore bathing dresses when taking a dip in the ocean. These were often just a modified version of their primary undergarment, the shift or chemise. The long, loose skirt made swimming in them very difficult. The earliest documentation of a bathing suit, such as Jo might have worn, was in 1837, but these two-piece suits did not enjoy popularity until about the 1850s. The two-piece suit was more practical for swimming because it consisted of a pair of bloomers and a short dress. While the many yards of fabric in this costume still became heavy and cumbersome while wet, at least Victorian women no longer had a long bathing dress tangled around their ankles or floating up and leaving their nether parts uncovered. The bathing suit soon became a fashion statement of its own. It was usually made in nautically inspired colors such as red, blue, and navy, and of a wool flannel so that the fabric would dry quickly. Various designs of plain braid were used on the hems, necklines, bodices, and waists to add variety. In keeping with Jo's color scheme, I chose a navy wool flannel for Jo's bathing suit. The bloomers are full and reach to the ankle as seen on many of the bathing suits in the 1860s. The bathing dress reaches just past the knees. The fullness in the bodice, sleeves, and skirt allow for ease of movement. I trimmed the suit with a red braid around the ankles, wrists, waist, and neckline, and added a square trim design on the bodice to mimic a sailor's square collar. I hope you've enjoyed this discussion of chapters 35 and 36 of Little Women, and a look at beachside fashions of the Victorian era. The next outfit in the Becoming Jo March series will be based on chapters 37 through 42 of Little Women, and I invite you to read it with me in preparation for the next video. Which outfit from those chapters do you think I'll be recreating? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me today as we explored what Jo and Beth might have worn on their seaside trip. If you would like your own made-to-measure version of Jo's bathing suit or Beth's sheer dress, shop with the link below. Please check out the other videos on the Little Women playlist, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Special thanks to Dixie DIY for filming and editing today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.